Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast. Today, we're joined by two special guests, Alex Martin and Casey Dyon. First, I want to say that we're doing this because this specific topic was requested by our audience. They've asked for more information about Nationwide Lift's franchise opportunities, and so let's see what we can learn. So, Alex, Casey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Fred. Appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. Casey there? Looks like we lost Casey. Well, let's go ahead and start, Alex. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. Alex Martin is the owner of Nationwide Lifts in California and Nevada. Alex began his career as a mechanic 18 years ago, and in 2015, he purchased his franchise and now employs 22 employees engaged in installation, service, and maintenance of residential and light commercial elevators. I'll go ahead and introduce Casey. He may join us again. You never know sometimes with these connections. But Casey Dyon is the owner of Nationwide Lifts in Illinois, based out of Chicago area. Casey started as a mechanic, has been in the industry over 21 years, and in 2005, he became an owner and has never looked back. So again, welcome. Glad to have you here, Alex. And again, we'll hope Casey looks like he's trying to get back on. There's Mr. Casey.
Sorry about that, fellas.
You're good. No, welcome. So I did introduce you while you were out, and just kind of told people a little bit about your background, that you've been doing this a long time, 2005 as an owner and over 21 years in the industry. And so again, both of you, welcome to the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is good stuff. So first what I want to talk about is a little bit is how we got here, right? How from, a technician, accessibility specialist, did you get to business owner? And I'm curious, let's just start with you, Alex. What first attracted you to elevators?
So I had the opportunity when I was in high school. I've always been kind of a gearhead. I love turning wrenches and working on cars, things like that. I had an opportunity with a gentleman I met sometime in high school who kind of became a mentor of mine that introduced me to the elevator industry. He'd been in it for about 20 years at the time, and he would take me to calls on the weekends when he was on call, things like that. And so that was kind of my first introduction. Before that, I had no idea that elevators were even serviced and maintained. Sure. You grow up and you get an elevator, you push a button and you go. It's I did not realize what actually went into, how complex an elevator system is going from it. So that once I was able to kind of see the intricacies of what it takes to keep elevators alive and running, that is ultimately what kind of spawned my fascination with it and desire to pursue it further.
Very cool. Casey, what about you? What led you to elevators?
So I had started in accessibility equipment, just kind of, as a helper. And I thought it would be cool to start doing them because I thought I could do it. And then with the clientele that we were working with, some of when you go from a VPL, like in someone's home, to seeing an actual elevator, I was like, yeah, these people need an elevator opposed to a wheelchair lift. And so that's
Right.
what sparked my interest and what kind of led me to it.
Right. So you both kind of jumped in early and just have stayed, right? It's like, this is fascinating. This is good work. And at what point did you think you might actually be an owner? I mean, was that a massive leap? Let's start with you, Casey. What are your thoughts on that?
So I had started the accessibility company. So I was, an owner of that already.
Okay.
And then when we purchased our first franchise, I kind of knew that I was going to be an owner kind of from the very beginning. So if that makes sense, I came in as a business owner and then bought the franchise. I think I may have been the second one on in the very beginning.
Very cool. What about you, Alex? What was your thought behind actually owning a franchise or being a business owner?
So I guess at the time when I first got in the industry, it really wasn't even a thought. I was just trying to get experience from a mechanic, learn as much as I can. And I feel like my goal in life was to always eventually own my own company. And I wasn't, at the time, I wasn't really sure what it was going to do or, what industry it would be in. But it wasn't until years down the road for me starting in my career that I started to think about the franchise as an opportunity. And really it was just getting to know the entire Nationwide family and working under, that umbrella that kind of opened up those opportunities for me later.
Sure. Why did you choose to stay with, I'm just curious. All right. Did you think at times, hey, maybe I'll just go start my own thing, right? I mean, why the franchise under Nationwide?
I think it was just a particular group, really had me in, from the beginning. There's such a camaraderie around the Nationwide Lifts group, and, working for Andy when he had hired me as a mechanic, seeing him as, again, being another huge mentor in this industry for me, and how fair he treated his employees and how hard he worked, always, motivated me to work, just as hard and learn it. I feel like, by the time that I was journeying out and getting my license, I just didn't, I wanted to stay a part of that family. I wanted to still I could see the growth that Nationwide Lifts was continuing to go towards. And,
right.
I wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah. I mean, for your perspective, it sounds like you saw what was there and didn't really entice you to go elsewhere because you saw the benefits of having the network, the mentorship, whatever else that kind of came with that. Is that
exactly
fair to say?
Exactly.
Okay. And Casey, what about you? You sound like you already kind of had your own business. What was it that made you kind of want to buy into this?
So I had worked with multiple manufacturers, like pretty extensively. I did a whole lot of stair lifts, some VPLs, some IPLs. I built ramps. I did all kinds of overhead ceiling lifts. So I dealt with a lot of companies. And I tell you what, what Alex said, the core group at least the Nationwide Lift headquarter office, Lori, Sue, Andy, have been some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my whole life, and they have been like that since literally day one, and so that was a humongous part of it for me. And number one, the support that I've received over the years, and I needed every bit of it. Okay, every single bit of it, and yeah, I mean, so that's a big part of it. Obviously, for me, it's going to be a love fest. I love Andy, Lori, Sue, Alex. I love these people. So I don't know if that makes
no, that's cool.
That works.
I mean, for sure. I mean, it sounds like even though you had a business, what you saw was additional support, additional friends, additional ways to build your business and have a lot of help doing it. Essentially, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, they have supported Nellie and I since literally day one, and have never once not had our back through anything, over the years. And you know how things go, and they have been there for us since day one. It's been the greatest gift, one can ask for with a team. At least that's the way I see it, They have been just tremendous friends, colleagues, all of it. And I mean, like Alex, he's been fantastic, and I knew what he was going to do as soon as I knew he was buying in. I knew for sure he was going to be off to the races.
Cool.
So
very cool. No, it sounds like
a
great team.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk for just a minute about why residential elevators matter more than ever. I mean, I hear more about them. I hear from different companies, and honestly, I've got some friends not too far away that we go to church with them, and they're like, "Hey, we're thinking about getting a residential elevator. Do you know anybody?" And I'm like, "Huh, yeah, actually, I do." I'm curious from your perspectives, what misconceptions do some homeowners have? I mean, in other words, are home elevators ubiquitous enough that everybody just kind of gets it, or are there still a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, I didn't think that was even an option? Casey, what are you seeing in your experience?
So I feel like clients now are much more educated than they were 20 years ago. I feel like 20 years ago, people thought the elevators cost 3 times at least what they actually cost. I mean, I think you and I think maybe talked about this last week, but it's exactly right. I mean, you look at a custom oak staircase, just a standard, first floor, second floor, oak treads, oak risers. I mean, you're at $45,000, $50,000 for something you have to walk on. You know what I mean? And so economically, I think that's done it. A lot of it. I mean, they're still attainable. I mean, you don't have to be rich to have an elevator. You can have one.
Right. And like you say, they're becoming people are a lot more educated. There's a lot more options. Certainly they can Google it. Alex, what are you seeing on your side?
Yeah, I think, kind of going off what Casey said, price was a big one, a big misconception of what they actually cost. And I think that kind of goes parallel to that was also the cost of construction. I think people had this big misconception of, how much it was going to cost, elevator aside, but just to destroy their home and tear their home apart, with a year of construction to build a hoistway and all this extra work. Our industry has really advanced so far that gives a customer so many options as to what they have. That's very, very minimal construction needs for their home and things like that. So getting that education out there, like Casey said, the education is, we can always do better. We can always do more to get more information out there and more literature for people out there. But we've really made huge strides, in the last 15 years or so.
Yeah. Well, and obviously the aesthetics too, right? I mean, you can actually have a home elevator that actually looks nice, whereas maybe 20 or 30 years ago that wasn't going to look as nice, or maybe it was just a closet. But I know the industry's come a long way there. And I'm sure that a lot of your installations are, new, because I know some developers want to just put in elevators from the get-go, and then some of them have to be, retrofit. And so I'm curious, what kind of situations trigger a call? Like you get a call from somebody like, hey, we may have to put an elevator in our home. What is that like? What do those situations look like? Alex, you want to start this one?
Yeah. So I would, so we kind of have two aspects in our business. One is the contractor side that, like you said, is building the home. There's a certain level of home where it's kind of becoming an expectation. You have a Wolf stove, you have these appliances in your kitchen, and they kind of come with an elevator, and it's kind of a given expectation for those builders. So that's the construction side of it. From the homeowner side, it's the large majority of the time it is purely focused around accessibility. We see when a homeowner starts reaching out to us, it's very often that either they're moving their parents in with them that are elderly and they live in a 2-story home, or it's an elderly couple that already has a 2-story home and is looking to make modifications to incorporate an elevator in there. Is what we would usually see, the kind of two halves.
Yeah. How often, Casey, I'll send this one to you. How often are you helping families avoid like assisted living or selling the home they've had for 50 years and really uprooting kind of their base?
I mean, it would be 100% of the clients that we take care of that have those needs. We do a lot of vanity. We do a lot of really beautiful elevators that are not necessarily for somebody who has accessibility needs in the home. That's more of a vanity thing and a status thing. But as far as accessibility, every client that I go to that needs or that has those needs, that's the main goal, is to try to keep them in their house. So every one of them,
Sure.
you know.
Gotcha. Yeah. How often do people, and obviously, Alex, you talked about the contractors that are putting them in from the get-go, but how often are individuals just thinking ahead 10, 20 years, right? Maybe they got a need that gives them a little trouble, or they think, when I get in my 80s, I might need this. Do you have a lot of people that are forward thinking, or do you get those calls that, oh, grandma just broke her hip, we need to do something now?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually dealing with a project specifically right now that the customer's coming back to us, and they did have the idea when they built their home about 9 years ago. They stacked the closets on top of each other, and so they were still able to get full utilization out of their house. They have closets at each floor in their home, but the plan was to always eventually, when the time came that they were going to need an elevator, they're able to take those floors out of that section, and there they have a hoistway. So yeah, we definitely see that quite a bit with customers who are making plans and provisions for it, and being that elevators can kind of fit within the confines of your typical closet. It doesn't. People are able to design that into that house, even if they're not going to be putting the elevator in right away. They can still get full utilization out of that square footage of their home until they're ready to pull the trigger.
Sure. And I'm sure a lot of people, that maybe aren't thinking that far ahead, and maybe they don't understand the costs. Maybe they're even surprised when, what, I can't afford this. I mean, do you have some of those stories that stick with you that, wow, we just changed somebody's life because they thought they were going to have to move out. They thought they were going to have to, totally uproot. Share one of those if you've got one, Casey.
So I had a client that called us. We talked them through it, and they said, "Can you get your builder and you to meet us tomorrow to go over it?" And I called my builder, Steve. We went out there and met with him, and both of us closed the job and had deposits before we left. And the lead came in literally 24 hours earlier. No drawings, no nothing. Closed the job, had the job in I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks it was. There's multiple jobs. I've had all kinds of clients to close immediately, to where there was no fussing, no negotiating, no nothing. They liked the price. They said, "Give me your best price," which is what we did, and won the job immediately.
How does that impact their life, right? Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
So with the elevator, so when we're providing, so like when we're using a builder, say say he does 10 hoistways for me a year, let's just say, we have 10 clients that need the hoistway built. I usually have a couple go-to builders that I kind of recommend to them, 2 or 3 of them, depending on the house, depending on the finishes. The plan is to try to, whether or not they're going to be in the home during the construction, you want the elevator and the finished product to not look like an afterthought. So just dust control, mitigate the trash and the dirt around the house from the construction. And you just try to be there for them and answer all the questions that you can for them, which we try to do, and do what you say.
Yeah. Alex, what kind of experiences do you have with those kind of almost emergency type situations?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some specific examples that we've had in the past. Normally, I would say any of those types of situations, barring anything that's like an accident that happens, a car accident or some type of health scare, a fall down the stairs for a client, we've dealt with those quite a few times. But to be able to go in and have a fix for somebody, in my case, he said, in such a fast turnaround time, is a huge advantage. And helps out tremendously. I know we have a customer specifically that we did about a year ago, and she's wheelchair bound, and the amenities that we were able to provide with her for that elevator to get her up, it had been years since she'd seen the upstairs of her home, in a 2-story house, and her husband had done remodels upstairs, and they had changed a whole bunch of aspects of the upstairs to accommodate her for the day that she may finally get to go up there. And the elevator was kind of the finish step for that, to be able to get it done and to see the look on her face, the reaction that she has an opportunity now to move about her home freely, every floor, every room, be able to get to it without the assistance of somebody else. It really gives them that freedom, and I just kind of makes them feel whole again,
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like an emotional experience, right? It's almost like getting your life back. You're actually able to travel where you want and get back in your own home. So, that's really cool. So I'm going to just invite our audience members. If you've had an experience with a parent, grandparent, friend, somebody struggling with stairs or mobility, share out your experience in the chat. Just want to invite you to share that or share any questions you have, because we're going to get to questions here in a few minutes. And we're going to talk for just a minute about the business of residential elevators. And so I want to ask each of you guys, how much, Alex, we'll start with you. How much education do you have to do before a sale?
How do you mean?
Well, just with the customer, right? We talked about price. We talked about, obviously there's a ton of options. And I imagine, right, that it's a little scary for a homeowner they're going to bring a skill saw into my house. They're going to cut a hole in my floor. What's that going to do to my house? What's it going to do to the looks? I mean, it's probably a pretty emotional experience for them because they don't know what to expect. And so I'm curious what that sales / education process looks and feels like.
Yeah. I think when you're dealing with homeowner, that those issues present themselves, far more than dealing with the contractor. If you're building a new construction home, they kind of, most contractors usually know what's going into it. From the homeowner perspective, it can be a little bit tough to sometimes lay out exactly what there is and all the literature and the pictures and diagrams, things we have nowadays to be able to show them, to help them understand better of what it's going to take, to get into this. It can seem a little overwhelming in the beginning, but, we're there throughout the whole process from start to finish to make sure that everything goes smooth. We deal with homeowners every single week that call our sales guys, and they have no idea where to start. They maybe saw a Instagram post or a Facebook post about a home elevator, and it was something they'd never thought about before. And they call us basically saying, we need help, and we have no idea where to start from, and what resources to do. And for us, it's a lot of fun for our sales guys, and those are usually what spawn the immediate site visits, where we will typically bring our all of our marketing material to be able to walk their home and point out where may be the best locations for them, make sure it works for them aesthetically, they like it, things like that.
Right. So Casey, why would you say people are so surprised by the cost? When you mentioned that they think it's 3 times as much, why are they so surprised that maybe it's not as expensive?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, just because they typically are. I know. I've had clients, obviously not as much as early 2000s. 2010, 2008. Then it was quite a bit different than now. But they were substantially less than what people thought. I mean, there were elevators back then that were selling for, $28,000 that people thought were $75,000 to $80,000. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Or putting in the hoistway, back, things have changed radically in the last 10 years as far as cost and all kinds of things. But it used to be, between $3,000 and $7,000 a floor is what construction costs were, depending on the home finishes and things like that. But average, depending on the finishes, so if you got a 3-stop elevator, that's, basement first, second, 21,
Right.
just call it 25 grand for construction and then 30 grand for the elevator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think people are kind
So
of
while
shocked
we're
at
on
that.
Yeah. While we're on that subject, I do see a comment from the audience. They're just curious, how does I guess the cost of maintenance kind of tie into that? What does that look like? Because it's one thing to buy it, right? But then you still got to get it maintained. What does that look like?
Alex, you want to take it?
Yeah, I can answer this. Yeah, absolutely. So, so the cost of maintenance. The cost of maintenance is going to vary pretty drastically from what type of equipment you have, whether it's a hydraulic or a gear elevator. On the residential side, though, I would say our average cost for customers on maintenance per year that's actual scheduled maintenance is anywhere from about $600 to $1,000 a year.
A year. Okay. I thought you were going to say a month. So you said a year. So, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So per year. So that includes our visits that come out, for all of your routine maintenance scheduled. Now, obviously service, things like that, as the elevators start to age, there are some parts that are consumable. So those kind of fall more into the service side of our industry. But, we do focus more again on the preventative maintenance, ensuring that we catch any of those issues before they become, major problems and wind up costing more. But, from a cost to own perspective, I'd say, elevators are more and more and getting better with every year. Every year that goes by as technology advances,
sure.
Things get better. It definitely, that price range is kind of a good middle ground to.
Yeah. Well, I know on the commercial side, there seems to be a big kind of this dividing line between, proprietary versus non-proprietary. In residential, is there that same division or not really?
There are some companies
there are.
that.
Go ahead, Casey.
Go ahead, bro. So there are a couple of companies that are proprietary that equipment. So like if a client goes with that particular company and let's just say they become unhappy with them in a year and or two, there's no one else can service that equipment but them. Most of our stuff is not necessarily like that. If that helps.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Alex, any thoughts on that as well? Oh.
Yeah, I would kind of mimic what Casey said. Is for the most part across the board, manufacturers typically have multiple companies in all of their sales areas that they're providing elevators to. That they're going to have multiple companies. So if you do run into an instance where either the customer's not happy with that specific service company, they're able to find others. There are a couple out there. Their business models have been structured more around giving precedence to one particular company in a very large region. I would say, that's a great question for customers to be asking those companies when they install them is how many competitors are out there that can provide, work on that type of equipment.
Thank you. Which honestly leads me kind of to my next question, which is, what should homeowners know before they start? And it sounds like that's one of the questions to ask is like, how I guess serviceable or, how much can others actually provide service for this if something happens? Alex, you want to take that one? How much should they know?
Very important.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, as somebody who's going to start looking and doing their research, that is absolutely the one of those top questions to be asking for sure.
What other top questions would you come up with? Maybe the top three that a homeowner really needs to understand or dig into?
I would say, I think the questions always be asked, but I can say, what I feel like most customers typically ask us. Price is a big one, but once it gets beyond that, it's safety. A lot of customers just want to know that these are safe, right? Hollywood has built. They've given the elevator industry a bad rap,
right?
With elevators that are free falling down hoistways and exploding and crashing into pits, and it's great for Hollywood and it's great for for views, but it's really not the reality. And so a lot of customers, I think, if they're able to talk to their sales reps and be able to get a more comfortable feeling, and understanding that how inherently safe elevators are, and all of the redundancies and backup safeties that they have to make sure that people are safe, and they're not going to have those concerns moving forward. That's one that we deal with a lot in the initial sales call, process.
Gotcha. So Casey, I've got a question I want to bounce off you. I know on the commercial side that, modernization is a big business. Do you see that on the residential side where, hey, it's been in here 15, 20 years and it's time to either start over or get a new controller? Does that exist on the residential side?
So it does. It's very, very small. At least for me, it's very small. I have only found a couple. We were able to use the sling package, the piston, and then just modded all the electrical components in the elevator, COP, all new controller, new pump, or whatever the case may be. But it's it's much more of a smaller aspect to the residential side, just because of the costs, on some of those. On a commercial, you can have 5 to 40 floors that you're changing.
For sure. So what I guess in that regard, what's the life span, if you will, of a residential elevator before it would need to be modernized or whatever that process looks like?
So the elevators that we have been putting in, say, the last 10 solid years, I don't see any reason why these elevators can't run 40 years. I mean, as long as they're maintained and repaired without any problems at all. What do you think? That's a good one. I'd like to know your answer on that, Alex. I mean, I don't see why any of these tractions that we're putting in today wouldn't be totally functional in 50 years from now, 40,
Yeah, I would definitely say the same. I mean, we see it. It seems a lot more frequently than Casey does. We have elevators that are 15 plus years old, residential and commercial. But focusing on the residential side here, the packages now that come out from manufacturers for other manufacturers' equipment they're either out of business, or they're no longer available to source those parts. The mod packages now that are out there, really enable you to continue the life of that elevator well past the 10 to 15 year expectancy that maybe some people might have that perception of it. And a lot of that too is based around electronics. Electronics are constantly advancing and constantly changing. And, manufacturers have to eventually decide to say, okay, this product's been on the market for a decade or more. We're already 3 iterations past that point. And, we just can't sustain keeping those parts on the shelf anymore, as we advance. And that's where the headaches, usually come for customers with older ones. But, in the world that we live in now where, you have, steel guide rails and steel rail brackets and steel slings, that stuff is going to last forever. It really, outside of a very small circumstance, they're going to last forever. If you're going in there after 15, 20 years and spending half the cost of a brand new elevator to mod it, to update it, we do that quite often.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's, and you're right. There's a lot of rapidly advancing, especially electronics and it sounds like there's a lot of aftermarket parts and things out there that manufacturers saying, hey, we can actually provide parts for this. So it's a unique thing, and obviously none of us can look into the future and say, oh, that's absolutely going to be obsolete. But I'm sure you're going to get a lot of those questions as people are trying to decide what to put in their home and what's going to be serviceable, especially if they're thinking in advance and saying, hey, in 20 years I might be not I might need this. Well, then they don't want to make it obsolete in those 20 years when they actually need it.
Absolutely.
So, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm just going to invite the audience. We are getting some comments and some questions, but the question for you, audience, is what would stop you from putting an elevator in your home? I'm just curious to know what that would be, and maybe we can look at that here in a few minutes. So I want to talk a little bit about the franchise, leading the team. Alex, we talked about in your intro, right, that you've got 22 employees. Casey, I don't remember number of employees, but you guys obviously got to lead a team and building the franchise. And so let's talk a little bit about finding the talent. And what do you find most difficult about that, Casey?
Geez, I don't even know how to answer that. You know, 10 years, I would have given you a totally different answer than today. Now, I mean, the ideal guy that I'm looking for now, I mean, obviously to find someone, you know, all of the good guys are working for people, you know, all the good guys. And so I'm looking for young, hungry, intelligent, talented men, you know, who
What about women? Do you have any women on your team that are any women on your team that are mechanics
not in the field, no.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah, it's very, very heavy equipment we're tossing around. So yeah,
I do know of
field,
female mechanics, so that's why I'm throwing it out there. Yeah.
Oh no, I've known a couple too. I had a female inspector who was great, named Wanda, and she was
Right.
fantastic. And she worked at a union company for years and years, downtown Chicago, which was crazy.
Right.
And but yeah, so talent. I'm looking for young, hungry talent.
So what's the hardest thing? Is it that they're just not interested, or where, or they don't like the type of work, or what is it?
I mean, it's maybe a different podcast, but it's been very, very hard to find people who even want to come to work. And if you find somebody who wants to come to work, you know, can they tie their shoes? So it's finding help over the last 4 years has been challenging, at least for me.
No, I hear you. So 4 years, you're kind of speaking, you know, COVID time, and it did seem like, I don't fully understand it, right? But it seemed like the workforce somehow got impacted by COVID, and just because I've heard it from so many people, that somehow that was an interesting time. Alex, what do you see on your end as far as the challenges of finding the talent?
Yeah, we've adopted in our business more of a mentality of starting with the young guys and kind of molding them and morphing them and training them into, you know, what our company, what our morals and ethics are, and how we, you know, service and maintain elevators, and kind of bring the training in house. One aspect that's tough in our industry is how niche we are, and I think a lot of people that I run into have the same perception that I did when I was 18, was that you just get in an elevator and you push a button, and the thought that somebody services this and maintains it, you know, wasn't even something I ever considered. And so, sure, you know, as we get the education out there and the information, just like we talked about with customers, it goes the same with mechanics, that, you know, we bring out new guys that are green, that we hire on, and they look at elevator controller like it's rocket science. I mean, they're blown away. They had no clue, of what goes into it. So, trying to find the guys that are motivated, that want to do this. And like Casey mentioned, you know, there's some incredible mechanics out there, great guys, and you know, companies are really taking care of those guys to make sure that they keep them on board. So finding new talent and getting, you know, licensed guys that you know are willing to jump ship, it can be tough sometimes, you know. Yeah.
Well, and it's, you know, it's everywhere, right? And there's a reason I bring it up, you know, because elevator careers, right, is what I like to talk about a lot, and talent's an issue in every area of the business from what I see. So. Just want to bring that up and talk about it, because I do see and do talk to people all the time that's their biggest limiting factor, right? Hey, if I could I had a client just this week, well, today's Monday, I guess it was last week. He said, I need like 6 mechanics, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's a lot, right? He could obviously do a lot more work with
everybody else.
6 more mechanics.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I feel like we're all dealing with that. I mean, that is our single biggest, bottleneck right now that we have to deal with is employment and getting the guys that are qualified to be in the field and taking care. Although the work is there, we have plenty of that. It's just finding guys to be able to keep up with timeframes and keep our customers happy. It's just definitely a difficult time there right now.
Sure. Well, I'm sure it kind of becomes a full-time job, as it were, right? Just kind of building the, putting the time into education, to loyalty. I mean, ultimately somebody could turn around and say, I don't want to do this, right? I'm going to go flip burgers. I'm going to go, do something else. But it ultimately you got to do it or you won't have anybody, right? You've got to be on that. So, what does it mean to build? Oh, go ahead.
What
Go ahead,
Alex
please.
had said too, and there's just so much wrapped into it. It's like having guys care, and it's, what I try to treat our clients with service and everything else is, how would I want somebody to treat my son if he was in a wheelchair, or my mother if she was in a wheelchair? So you want to provide a level of service that you can, you want to sleep at night. You want to, you want to feel good about yourself. And, finding people that have that same kind of drive, it's 1 out of 100, I don't know what the number is,
Wow.
but
Wow.
it's been tough, at least for me. And with
I don't
young
think
guys,
you're the only one.
with young guys too. And it's like, you try to tell them, like, the elevator industry has been fantastic. It's been great to me and everybody I care about. You know what I mean? And, to try to sell that to them is tough. It's really tough.
Right. Well, and I guess if people are young enough, they haven't seen much of the world, and so they may not recognize just how good of an opportunity it is. You grab them right out of high school, and they haven't seen the world, and so it's like, this is kind of cool, but I want to try 16 other things, and then I'll realize that, oh man, I wish I'd have stuck with that, 20 years later. It happens, right? We all make choices, and so it does become a kind of a full-time part. It sounds like of what you do is building a team, building camaraderie, building the loyalty as much as possible, and hoping some people stick around and really experience what there is for them to have, because it sounds like there's a lot that they can learn and do that they may not appreciate at the time.
Oh, and there's so much when it comes to installing the elevators. There's so many level ups that our mechanics get. There's carpentry, there's rigging, there's electricity, it's
For sure.
It's a level up for sure.
So what I'm hearing in part is that if somebody comes and works with you and they spend a few years, they're going to learn so much. They could, even if they don't stay with you, they could probably go start their own handyman business because of everything you've taught them.
They could take it anywhere they want to and make, at least what I'm paying them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, or
especially if they're
they
hungry,
could become their own
even quicker.
Yeah. Or they could become their own owner, their own franchise. I mean, that's essentially what you did, Alex, right? You came in, you learned it, and at some point you're like, hey, I'm ready to own and run this thing, and stepped right into the captain's seat, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I am hearing a couple things, from you guys, just regarding talent, that it's one thing to find some work ethic. You also got to find somebody that cares. And, some of our audience members are just mentioning that, some just don't care, right? As long as they get a paycheck, or they don't, that you may hire somebody and sometimes you got to weed out the bad ones, because maybe maybe they're poisoning the system more than they're bringing value, and that can be challenging and painful at times to have to work through those situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk for just a minute about what would you say the ideal franchise owner is? Is it somebody, because you can find all kinds of people looking to buy a business, and you can find, and then obviously we've talked about you guys coming right out of working in it into ownership. So Alex, why don't you start with this one? Who's the ideal franchise owner for this opportunity?
I think the ideal franchise owner is somebody with experience. I think that's the most important part. And it kind of goes back to the last topic with just hiring, guys, is there's a lot of aspects to our industry that just you don't see in other industries. So to be able to come from, maybe a plumbing background or even an electrician background, and then to dive into elevators, it's, it can be very overwhelming. Someone in my, from my aspect of being a licensed, mechanic who started around franchise, the transition, from I had the transition from the mechanic day to day to the business operations, and that was learnable. It took time, but if you are coming in as a business owner and you're trying to learn the elevator industry, it's going to take a lot of time and it's very difficult. So having that background in mechanics, I think for myself, it was huge. To have that. And I have seen people in the past who come from different backgrounds, even more white collar backgrounds that got into it, and they struggle. It's not to say that it's impossible, but it was definitely more difficult for them to be able to learn everything that goes into our industry to make it operate.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind that I think would be a challenge is, let's say I'm coming from maybe I'm an accountant, right? And I want to buy a franchise, and hey, I'm going to do this. I also need a license, right? In many of the states. And if I don't have that experience, how does that even work, right? How do you run a business and have a license for it when you can't qualify for the license? That sounds like a major roadblock.
A lot of companies in that situation might be able to find a licensed guy who can be the license holder for that company. Okay. I see it. I can't speak, for every state as far as what their rules and regulations are. I know it happens in California quite often, where you'll find investment companies or private equity companies that will utilize somebody's license, to put that license under their business to be able to operate that way.
Okay, so you'd essentially have to hire or pay for someone to kind of be that person, as it were. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Exactly.
There you go. Is there anything that you think matters more than the experience, Casey? Or is experience like a number one?
So I would say he's about 6'6", red hair, strong as an ox. Okay. I'm talking about Alex. No, the ideal franchise owner. You want somebody hungry, smart, somebody who's turned some wrenches before, preferably somebody in the business who's looking for some freedom. For me, the benefits to being obviously, the owner. For me, I mean, it's, like that I have to try to sell it. It's like I made it to my kids' ball games, basketball, volleyball, baseball, plays. I made it to every one of them. Had I not been an owner, I could have never done that, ever. And, in time with the kids, especially those years, when that's gone, it's gone. You'll never, ever, ever get it back. And so you want somebody who cares about their family, and somebody who wants to be free, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
Somebody who's not afraid of hard work, somebody who's not afraid of hard work. At least, as far as our team, the nationwide team, that's who I think is ideal. 6'6", and strong, hungry, driven, family people, loyal, and who wants some freedom, somebody who wants some freedom. And yeah, I think that's the ideal person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And I appreciate that because I do hear from people quite often in my recruiting work where, they'll say, man, I really want an equity opportunity, right? I would, you know, definitely, jump out of what I'm doing to have some kind of opportunity where I have skin in the game. Now, whether it's, residential or commercial or either, they don't really specify, but to your point, some freedom, some ownership. I think that's the American dream more than some of the other things we hear about. So I guess I want to jump to, I want to share. So and I apologize to the audience member. I kind of skipped a comment question. I had asked earlier about, what would stop you from installing a home elevator, and one of the audience members saying, when it came down to this lack of knowledge. So we're talking about, educating the population is what stopped his parents, his or her, I'm not sure. So they sold their home when it became inaccessible for mom, and they moved into a single story. So one of those examples where, just didn't know what they didn't know. That's the only thing that seemed workable at the time. And so, that's kind of how it went. So I have a couple other, and so audience members, if you've got some questions, now is a great time to go ahead and put them in there. And I've got a couple here. I just wanted to bounce off you guys. So one of is, what does the application process look like? If someone wants to be a franchise owner, what does that even look like? Alex, you want to speak to that?
Honestly, I think Casey could probably speak to this a little bit better.
Okay, Casey.
Yeah. Well, I know you would contact our office, obviously our corporate office, and then obviously go through them. As far as the process, I mean, it's as long as you're vetted by our team. I haven't gone through the process in over 20 years, but I know that there's some vetting, and I know obviously
For
there's
sure.
financial responsibility to it, and then territory. But you would contact, I'm sure it would be just elevators.com. Just go directly to elevators.com or our New York office. I know we have some franchise ads up currently, I believe. I think those are on, at least I believe they are, marketing the states that are available. And the territories available. So I would start at Nationwide Lifts headquarters, Nationwide Lifts corporate office out of Syracuse, New York, and or elevators.com is where to start. And I will tell you, for those, if there is anyone here looking to do that, I love it. Love it. It has been the funnest, greatest, craziest ride I've ever been on. And I'm grateful for being here. I'm grateful for our team. All of them, all of them. And we're all here for each other. We all kind of stick together.
For sure.
We all work hard. And so if that's any encouragement to Nationwide itself, I can say that. If that answers your question, Matt.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good answer. I mean, certainly you've kind of pointed them to the folks that can answer all the questions, right? Which is to Nationwide Lifts, right? I can't answer it. I was just curious, from having walked that path. And the other one, is a question about how quickly can a franchise owner expect to generate new profits. I think I'm going to have to. I don't know. We're running out of time, and I've got just the last few questions and some comments. Do you guys want to speak to that quickly?
I can tell you right now, with 100% certainty, it's instantly. You'll start selling elevators immediately. So long as you're capable of selling and you can close a deal, you will close the deal immediately.
Okay. So
There's
it's just a
work
matter
all over
of
the
doing the
country.
work,
It's
basically. You
everywhere.
got it. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Alex, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's no shortage of work right now. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, speaking more to the point too of the nationwide franchises, one thing I've really noticed throughout the years is the powers in numbers that we have. You've got guys from all different types of elevator backgrounds, union guys, non-union guys, commercial side, residential side, even people from different career paths that come together that are able to work, whether it's electrical engineering or CAD design, where the
Physics.
Rolodex, the Rolodex numbers that I have available just within the nationwide group is incredible, and that's the way we've always treated it with everybody. Is I'm in California, Casey's in Chicago. I can call Casey almost any time of the day and be able to talk to him or one of his guys, and vice versa, and have that huge advantage, not just with help with manufacturers,
Okay.
And the bargaining power we have there, but also just the resources we have of seeing something that you're not familiar with, but knowing that you've got enough guys within that group to be able to help, figure it out.
Which is a good segue into we have one question. It's probably the last audience question we'll be able to take, which is what's the difference? And we talked about, some of the benefits, but I just want to kind of peel this apart a little bit more. What's the difference between franchising and owning your own company? Obviously, you're paying a portion for the franchise versus owning your own company. You might, maybe there's a little bit more margin you get to pocket. Well, from your perspectives, what are the big differences? Casey, we'll start with you.
So technically, you're going to own your own company. You're going to own your own company. As far as I mean, the buying power that we have collectively is for me is worth every penny that I pay in the franchise, royalties and fees that I have to pay. It's the manufacturing, the manufacturers, and the respect you get. I think as a whole, being part of a network, is
so you're
is
saying
what it is.
you get lower costs, essentially, is what you're saying, right? You're getting a better
Yeah,
deal on the things you're buying.
Yeah, nationwide as a whole, we have a much stronger buying power to where if I was just, Apple Jack's elevator company and I did, 25 elevators a year, I'm not going to some of the manufacturers aren't even going to take us seriously. Opposed to like Nationwide Lift as a whole that's doing, 30 million a year. I don't know. You know what I mean? Or whatever it is. So those benefits far outweigh, our calls get answered, people want to talk to you, what do you think, Alex?
Sorry, you're breaking up just a little bit. Alex, let's you respond to that real quick. Let's let Alex finish your sentence for you because it cut off.
Yeah, I think Casey kind of nailed it down there as far as the benefits. The biggest one, the bargaining power that we have with manufacturers as a whole group comes together is definitely a benefit.
So lower prices, do you get better response rates, or times? I mean, are they more responsive when you say, "Hey, I'm calling with nationwide," versus if you were Apple Jacks, like Casey said?
Yeah, not necessarily. I think that all the manufacturers that we deal with, they're going to treat all the companies fair. I mean, whether if it's response times with tech support or anything like that, I can't say that I've ever seen an advantage that me or my guys would have over another company. It stays pretty even keeled, but typically it's more just when it comes down to the cost of equipment, things like that.
Yeah,
usually help out.
Thank you both. We're out of time, but I appreciate you both being here. I've enjoyed it. I appreciate your willingness to just talk about the nationwide franchise opportunity, and I wish you the best as you continue to build your businesses.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, man. It was a pleasure today. Thank you.
Thank you. All pleasure here. And yeah, we'll go ahead and sign off, and hopefully you guys will hopefully you'll get a few people responding on the corporate asking about franchise opportunities. So thanks again.
Exciting.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.